Good morning, everyone. Let's stand and sing together. This is the day that you have made. Whatever comes, I won't complain. For all my hope is in your name. And now my joy awaits my praise. Come on, sing it out. I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. Sing this out. When I was down, you brought me out, set my feet on higher ground. So here I stand, you are my God, your faithfulness, my solid rock. Come on! I give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. Yeah. Sing this out. And as we lift our hands up, heaven's open, heaven's open. So let our lives declare the love our God has spoken over us. And as we lift our hands up, heaven's open, heaven's open. So let our lives declare the love our God has spoken over us. Give thanks for all you have done, and I will sing of your mercy and your love. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful. I give thanks for all you have done. I won't forget all the battles you have won. Your love is unfailing. Lord, I am grateful.
Man, that's not a subtle way to start. That's awesome. That's so good. You can have a seat. Welcome. So grateful that you're here. That song, Grateful's perfect. That's how I feel this morning, honestly. We just have so many great conversations, so many connections already this morning. My name is Danny. I'm one of the teaching pastors here, and we're grateful that you're with us. I just want to draw your attention to a few things that we're grateful for. So one already happened. It was this past Friday. How many of you, by the way, happened to be at the leadership gathering? Just yell out or let me see your hands. Look at you. And so we had, for those of you that don't know, on Friday night, we did something that we call Leadership Gathering, where we have a lot of our core leaders or people leading in Kensington just gather. And we gathered at Orion campus. There's almost 1,000 leaders in that room. And we got to hear unbelievable teaching from Brian Tome, who is one of our partners in Cincinnati, and then Pastor Chris Brooks. Oh, Pastor Chris Brooks is one of my heroes in Detroit, and it's just unbelievable. So we had a great moment, and so I just want to celebrate that, because whenever we gather leaders in a room and we talk about Jesus and we talk about his way and how that can impact this community, boy, I'll tell you what, we start to see stuff just start to happen. And in fact, we have this is a great segue into the next event that I want to bring your attention to, because this happens in this event as well. So I need to hear this morning from the men. Just give me a man yell. Yes, see? We're men. We're men. And we do something called Man Up. And this is a great way for us to connect. And this is a great way for us to get inspired. It's our men's retreat. We've been doing this several years. And I'll tell you something. We hear story after story after story of men connecting into community. By nature, I know just for me, by nature, I tend to be isolated as a guy. It's my first instinct. But when we connect and we really start to talk. So we're up at Spring Hill. You can go kensingtonchurch.org/manup. You do not want to miss this, especially if you're a man in our midst that is isolated and doesn't have community. This can change your whole life. In fact, we've heard it changes your life, your family's life, your community. So be part of that for sure. Well, we are in this series called Circles, which we're actually talking about community. And this is our last week. We have a special guest today. His name is Andrew Kim. I'm going to talk about him in a minute as he leads us. But next week, we start a new series called Leave a Mark. And so we just wanted you to have a little glimpse of what this series may feel like. Let's watch this together.
What would it look like if we all started living out our faith every hour of every day? Instead of only reserving an hour a week to connect with God here, what if we were looking to see what God was already up to here, here, or here? Join us for a 4-week series where we look to discover how God has strategically gifted and positioned each one of us in the perfect place to leave a mark.
I don't know what TV commercial I saw over the last couple of days, but it was some kind of car commercial. And the first lines were like, you're not here, unintentionally. You're here to leave a mark. And then all of a sudden a car goes by and you're supposed to buy their car because you want to leave a mark, right? That has nothing to do with the series. But what it does have to do with is this. I really believe, and we believe here, that God has designed every single person uniquely to leave a mark wherever he places you. And sometimes we think, I don't know the purpose of my life. I don't really understand. I'm telling you, with all my heart, I really believe that God has a plan for every single one of his people and communities of people to leave a mark for his kingdom. So you don't want to miss this. You want to invite friends. You want to come back, because I really believe these few weeks together can be transformative. And speaking of leaving a mark, we have an opportunity to really leave a mark in things that are happening in our community and outside of our community. Obviously, in the last few weeks, we've had Houston and we have had Florida. And we really do want to leave a mark. We really want to help. And so obviously, there's a lot of organizations that you can give to, but we wanted to give you an opportunity to be part of our organization and be able to partner with people in need. So if you've never downloaded the Kensington Church app, I would encourage that. It's a great way to stay connected. But in this particular instance, it's a great way to be able to give so that all that money will go down for hurricane relief. So you can see there, you can text Kensington to 77977. You put the amount that you'd like to give, and that will go directly there. Also, we have a trip going to Houston, and so you can sign up for that trip, and you can go to kensingtonchurch.org/rebuild Houston. And we're going to put a little team together. We're going to go down there to be able to really be hands and feet on the ground. Some of our people are already down there, but I would encourage you, if you want to be that, please be part of that. One more opportunity, and then I'm going to bring up Andrew. But there's a lot of times in these settings. A couple days ago, I was talking to my youngest daughter. She's 26, and she was like, Dad, I really believe in God, and I was at work and I was having this conversation with my coworkers and they're asking these really big questions. And I was like, you just need to talk to my dad. She's awesome. But she was saying to me, she's like, hey, I really have big questions about God. It's like, I believe in God, but there's huge questions that I have. I'm confused by how sometimes the world operates and this and how God operates in the world. We want to be, if you really have those questions, which I know a lot of you do, a great action step is something that we call Alpha. where you can get together with a group of people, sign up. It's a course, it's 9 weeks. We have dinner each time together, and you can sit with people and really ask the hard questions and start to have community. It's a unique way to have community and start community, so be part of that as well. Well, I'm going to bring up Andrew in a minute, but I would encourage you to stand up and just have a moment where you look at someone you don't know and just tell them what you're going to do this weekend. Well, please give a big hand to Andrew Kim.
Thanks, guys.
It's really been a pleasure. Andrew's in from Philadelphia. He taught Wednesday night, and it was just awesome. And it's been great to me to be with you, and then, of course, your wife, Robin, and kids. But we've invited you to stay for the weekend and just share your heart. So I'm going to pray for you and then just set you loose to do what you do. Thank you, Lord, for Andrew, Robin, and the kids. Thank you for how you've wired this man. You've given him your heart. I really do believe he's a man after your heart, Lord. And so set that heart free to speak the good news, Lord, of Jesus. Just let these words be of you, Lord. Let them be tattooed on our heart, mind, and soul. Thank you, Lord, for all that you do and what you're going to do. We thank you in advance. Pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Good morning, guys. Good morning. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure getting to know Kensington, not only this past week, because I've been here since late Tuesday night, hung out with a ton of people, but at the same time, for the past couple of months, my family and I, we've been getting to know this community better. And one of the things is, as Danny mentioned, right now we're out in the Philadelphia area, and one of the pastors out at a church there. But originally, where I grew up, where I went to college, was Vancouver. How many of you guys have been to Vancouver? Okay, a lot of you. Okay, so obviously I'm a little bit biased, but I think Vancouver is not just the most gorgeous place, not the most beautiful place just in North America, but really in the world. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you've never been there, you should go there. Right? And I'm not getting paid for that from Tourism Vancouver, but nevertheless, it's just a gorgeous place. And my wife and I, we've been married for 11 years. She's from northern Minnesota, which is one of the coldest places that I've ever been to. But even though it's frigid in the winters, it's absolutely beautiful in the summers, and the people there are amazing. And so we're out in Philly, and we have 2 kids. My oldest, her name is Eliana, just started first grade, having a great time in first grade now. She actually cried for the first week and a half because it was a brand new school. But nevertheless, now she's adjusted, and my youngest, Isaiah, is 4, happiest little guy you will ever meet. And so as I mentioned, we've been getting to know, as a family, Kensington better. We've been having a lot of conversations and just getting to know what you all are all about. And one of the things that I have been so impressed by, and especially this past week, is your passion for the one. And when I saw that every one with one in parentheses, I was wondering, what in the world is that? Is that a grammatical error? It's like, I don't understand what that is. And so this past week, as I've been in meetings and had conversations, I've really heard the passion that's so present, that your mission as a community is to reach the one. And that mission hasn't just been for a year or 2 years, but ever since the beginning. And the leadership gathering was so amazing to be at, because that was just hammered home. And so that has impressed me so much. But what also has impressed me, and I have never ever seen this at any other church that I've been to. And the first place that I saw this was right here in Troy. And it really speaks to the culture here, is that, I don't know if you noticed, but you have a slide out there, right in the lobby, right for everyone to see. And just by a quick show of hands, I don't understand, most of us are adults here, but how many of you have been down that slide? Come on, just show of hands. Okay, a lot more than the 9 a.m. service. And I went down that slide back in July when I was here with my family, and let me tell you, it was a great experience. But it really speaks to the culture that's here, in that you not only are serious about reaching the one, but also you're also committed to having a lot of fun. And so it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And today, as Danny mentioned, what we're gonna be doing is I have the privilege of wrapping up this series that you all have been in for the past 2 weeks called Circles. And if you were here 2 weeks ago, Drew Daniels kicked it off by talking about the fact that we become those people. We are influenced the most by those people in our inner circle. They're the ones who have the greatest influence on us. And so as a result, we need to have people that we not only love and trust, but also who love and trust us. And also not only that we love and trust, but also love Jesus and can move us closer to him. And then last week, Danny gave a great message on vulnerability. And he talked about the fact that in community, when we're connected to each other, that we need to live wide open, just like Jesus modeled for us when he was on this earth. And he talked about the fact that vulnerability, even though for so many, it's a sign of weakness in our culture, it takes an extraordinary amount of strength to be vulnerable in relationship. And so today, we're gonna be wrapping things up by talking about the fact that we not only need community. For every single one of us here as human beings, we need other people in our lives. We need to be connected to other people. But at the same time, we also need to be that community for somebody else. And so the arts team here has created a moment to move us into that.
Yes, you're right. There's always someone who has it worse than me. I wish I could just look on the bright side of things and turn that frown upside down. I wish it were that easy. Yes, we all have problems, don't we? We all get a little blue sometimes. I get very blue all the time. I'm so blue, I'm purple. But do you really know how this feels? Do you really know how this grips me inside and threatens to rip me apart? Do you know the weight that holds me down? A weight so powerful, I can hardly move. Oh, sure. A nice cup of tea will instantly cure me. Maybe if you put some Prozac in it. I wish I could just snap out of it, like it was some sort of a spell a witch casts on me. I'm waiting for some prince to come along and kiss away my tears. I wish there was something that could take away the pain. I can't handle this much longer. All I want to know is that I'm not alone. That I'm important to someone. Maybe I want a hug sometimes. I want someone to be here for me and help me through this. I need someone who's stronger than me. I'm so weak. I need someone who's strong enough for the both of us. I need to know you'll be there for me. I need to know that you'll never give up on me, that you'll never leave me, that you'll never go away. And I need someone to help me not give up on myself. I want to know that I'm important, that I matter, that I'm loved. Tell me that things will get better. It helps to have someone to talk to. It helps to say something.
Just fight a little longer, my friend. It's all worth it in the end. But when you got nobody to turn to, just hold on and I'll find you. I'll find you. I'll find you. Just hold on and I'll find you.
Hanging on by a thread, and all I'm clinging to is prayers. And every breath is like a bat. I feel like I ain't come prepared. Cause death's knocking at my front door, pain's creeping through the back, and fear's crawling through the windows. I'm waiting for him to attack. They say don't get bitter, get better. I'm working on switching them letters. But tell God I'm in need a whole lot of hope, keeping it together. I smile in everyone's face. I'm crying whenever they leave the room. They don't know the battle I face. They don't understand what I'm going through. The world trying to play with my soul. I'm just trying to find where to go. I'm trying to remember the way. I'm trying to get back to my home. But I can't do this on my own. That's why I'm just trusting in you. Cause I don't know where else to go. And I don't know what else to do.
Just fight a little longer, my friend. It's all worth it in the end. But when you got nobody to turn to, just hold on and I'll find you. Just fight a little longer, my friend. It's all worth it in the end. But when you got nobody to turn to, just hold on and I'll find you.
Hold on.
I'll find you.
Hold on.
I'll find you. Just hold on and I'll find you. I'll find you.
Hold on.
I'll find you. Just hold on and I'll find you.
They say fear haunts and pain hates. I say pain strengthens and fear drives faith. Now I don't know all of the outcomes, don't know what happens tomorrow, but when that ocean of doubt comes, don't let me drown in my sorrow. No, don't let me stay at the bottom. I feel like this hole is too deep to climb, cause I've been looking for a way out, but I'll settle for a peace of mind. Picking up the pieces of my life, hope I put together something right. Tell me all I got is all I need. Tell me you gon' help me stand and fight, cause the world try to play with my soul. I'm just trying to find where to go. I'm trying to remember the way. I'm trying to get back to my home, but I can't do this on my own. That's why I'm just trusting in you, cause I don't know where else to go, and I don't know what else to do.
Oh, don't let the fear
Let it
make you feel like you can't fight this on your own. You know I'll be there for you no matter where you go. You'll never be alone, no. Just fight a little longer, my friend. It's all worth it in the end. But when you got nobody to turn to, just hold on and I'll find you.
hold on.
Just fight a little longer, my friend. It's all worth it in the end. But when you got nobody to turn to, just hold on and I'll find you. Find you. I'll find you. Just hold on and I'll find you. I'll find you. I'll find you. Just hold on and I'll find you.
It's a powerful, powerful song. And it reminds us of the need for community. And as I was sitting right there, I was wondering to myself, and I was thinking back on a time where I felt like this. And so one of the questions I was thinking of was, have you ever felt like this? Where you needed somebody so deeply, something devastating entered into your life, something so painful. And you were thinking, I so need somebody's help. But when you looked around, there was nobody around to help you. And so this song that we just heard, it was written by an artist named Lecrae, and it reminds us that we need community. But at the same time, one of the other lines in this song that I found to be so powerful was this. It's where he says, I'm trying to remember the way. I'm trying to get back to my home. But he says, I can't do this alone. And those lyrics are so powerful to me because for so many of us, and they're powerful to so many of us here, because so many of us have experienced this exact same thing. And that we've looked up and we've looked around at one point in our lives and we've wondered to ourselves, how did I get here? How did I get on this road? And I remember when I was a kid, and like I said, I grew up in Vancouver, but when I was a kid, like most Asian kids, what I wanted to be when I grew up was that I wanted to be a doctor. That's what I wanted to be. But the reason why I wanted to be a doctor, my reasons were completely all messed up. And I think my reason, or they were totally all wrong, because I think wanting to help people, I think that was like number 10 on my list. It was like way, way down here. Thanks so much, Eric. And so it didn't even crack the top 5, definitely didn't crack the top 3. And I remember my top 2 reasons for wanting to be a doctor was that I wanted the respect that I knew that what people would give me if I had those 2 letters, MD, after my name. But in addition to respect, I also wanted the money. I also wanted the salary and the money that I knew doctors made, because growing up in Vancouver is right by the ocean. So I wanted to buy a house. I wanted to have a house. I wanted to live right on the water. And growing up, I also really liked cars. So I wanted one very specific car. It's very expensive. And I knew that if I was a doctor and I made doctor money, that I could probably afford these things. But the thing is that in Canada, where I grew up, there aren't a whole lot of medical schools. And so it's very, very competitive. And so I remember in college, I put a ton of pressure on myself to perform. And in college, what I would do is that I volunteered at all these different places, at all these different hospitals, with all of these different medical organizations. So when it came time to me having to apply for med schools, that I could write these experiences down. And these med schools could look at my application and say, wow, this guy is a really well-rounded guy. He must care. But what I also did was that I studied like crazy. And in college, anything less than an A for me was unacceptable. I felt like I couldn't afford to get an A-, a B+, let alone a B. Because if I got a B or any of those grades, an A-, B+, B, I thought in my head, you know what? My dreams of going to med school are gonna be over. And I remember it was during my sophomore year, and it was during finals week. And I was in my room studying because I was a biology major. I was studying for this huge biology exam that I had later on that week. And this one exam, how I did on it is basically would make up 70% of my grade. And so I knew that if I did well on the exam, you know what? I'm gonna get a good grade in that class. But if I don't do well, I'm gonna get a bad grade. And my plans of going to med school probably could kiss them goodbye. And I remember sitting there that night at my desk. All of my notes were in front of me. And I felt completely overwhelmed because there was so much to study. And I knew I didn't have enough time to cover all of it. And so I was sitting there looking, feeling utterly overwhelmed and so stressed. And I remember at one point, I just started crying. I just broke down and I started crying. And I'm not talking about a few tears. I mean that I was weeping. And when I finally stopped crying and sort of composed myself, I looked around and I wondered to myself, how did I get here? How did I get to this point in my life? Because this isn't what I want. This is miserable. I'm always stressed. I always feel like I have this weight on my shoulders because there's so much pressure on me. I don't want to live like this. And at that point, I had a moment of clarity. And I said, you know what? Something has got to change in my life. But at the same time, I realized that if something was going to change, that I needed others to help me make those changes. And so I reached out to my pastor at the time. I reached out to some friends who I trusted and who I loved. And I told them, hey, this is what's going on. I need your help if I'm gonna change, if the trajectory of my life is gonna change. And I reached out to these people because I recognized that I couldn't do it on my own. And that's exactly what Lecrae says in his song, is that he says, I can't do it on my own. And that's really what this entire series, Circles, has been about, that we as human beings can't do it on our own. But the sad thing is, the unfortunate thing is that so many of us here have been conditioned to think that we can do things on our own, that we can do everything on our own, that you got this, that I got this, and you know what? We don't need anybody else's help. And recently I was on this thing, maybe you've heard of it. It's called the World Wide Web. So I was on the internet recently, and I was on this site that provides information about American culture to incoming international students. And so it said on this website that one major American value is independence. So as such, they said, Americans, because this such a huge value for Americans is independence, Americans are encouraged at an early age, so as children, to be independent and to develop their own goals in life. They're encouraged to not depend too much on others, including their friends, teachers, and parents. And they're rewarded when they try harder to reach their goals. So what this says is that we're conditioned at a very, very early age to think that we got this, that you got this, that I got this, and we don't need anybody else's help. And because this behavior is rewarded, what that means is that it's going to be repeated. But the thing is that when it comes to independence isn't all bad. Because if you're a parent, or say if you're a teacher, you want your children, you want your students to be independent in many areas of their lives. You don't want them to always have to come to you and ask you, hey, how do I do this? Because they can't figure it out, that they can't do it themselves. You want to equip them, you want to teach them to grow up and to do certain things by themselves. To grow up and to become adults and to make wise decisions, good decisions, smart decisions, to be able to collaborate. These are healthy collaboration. These are all healthy forms of independence. But at the same time, independence in certain contexts can also lead to unhealthy behaviors in unhealthy places, like isolation. And when I say isolation, I'm not talking about a relational isolation where we don't have any friends, where you don't have any relationships. But I'm talking about an isolation where we wall ourselves off from people so nobody else can speak into our lives, where nobody else can give us input and advice. And when we come to that place, when we become isolated like that, what happens is that we don't make good decisions. And the reason why we don't make good decisions in isolation is that because for every single one of us, including myself, we all have blind spots. Because none of us here know everything, none of us here can see everything, which is why we need other people at times to be our eyes, to help us to see and help us to recognize and understand those things that we can't. And so when we isolate ourselves, because we have blind spots, we make bad decisions. And when we make bad decisions, what we experience is regret. That's the progression. Isolation, because we have blind spots, leads to bad decisions, and then we experience regret. And I experienced this exact thing 10 years ago. And as I mentioned at the start, my wife Robin and I, we've been married for 11 years. And so 10 years ago, what was happening was we were about to celebrate our first anniversary. And at the time, we lived in the Boston area, so we decided, hey, let's go down to Newport. Let's go down to Newport, Rhode Island, which is a beautiful, beautiful place. But at the same time, back then, we didn't have a lot of money. And so we were gonna take this trip and spend a lot of money on this trip because it was a big deal. It's our first anniversary, never gonna happen again. So my wife came to me one day and said, hey, you know what, since we're gonna be taking this trip, how about we just not buy each other gifts for our first anniversary? And this was a huge, huge step for her because gifts are a big deal to my wife. She not only likes receiving gifts, but she also likes giving gifts. But for me, I'm the total opposite. I hate gifts, really dislike gifts, and not necessarily receiving them. I really enjoy those. So if you guys want to give me a gift, I'm completely open to that. But the gift giving process is a very, very stressful process for me. Because I go to the store and I think, or go online and I think, oh, what would these people like? So the process is very, very stressful. So when my wife said this, I was thinking, this is the best anniversary gift I could have ever received, not having to give you a gift. So that's what I was thinking, because it was very, very stressful. And so this is what we decided. We're not gonna give each other any gifts for our first anniversary. So let me ask you guys in the room a question. Doesn't matter if you're married, doesn't matter if you're single. How many of you guys still would have given your wife a gift? Put your hand up. Put your hand up. Yeah, okay. I could see by the cheering or all of that. For all of you guys who put your hand up, you're probably sitting beside your wives or your girlfriends or somebody that you're interested in and all of that, and you're trying to say, hey, you know what, I'll still give you a gift. Try to cover my bases. How many of you guys would have stuck to the agreement and not given a gift? Hands up. Be courageous. Thank you. Very few, but nevertheless, you guys are out there. Brotherhood does not exist anymore. Every man for themselves. That's good. So this is what happened, right? Let me tell you what happened. So our first anniversary rolls around. And so the day comes around, and so we both get out of bed, and when we see each other, we say, happy anniversary. And we give each other a big hug. And then what my wife did, what Robin did, was that she gave me a card. So I got this card. I opened up the card, and inside the card, she had written all of these kind and thoughtful and loving things about me and our marriage. And she said, hey, you know what? I love being married to you. You've been such a great husband. Our first year was more amazing than I could have ever imagined. That kind of stuff, right? Nice stuff. So I read it, and I closed up the card, put it back in, and I looked at it and I said, thank you. Right? And then she looked at me as if to say, All right, you can give me my card now. But the thing is, in my mind, we had agreed no gifts, no gifts. And in my mind, a card was a gift. And so I told her this, I don't have a card for you because this was our agreement. And this is what she said to me. And I quote, "Don't you know that a card is not a gift?" Okay, so I was gonna ask you ladies, but I'm pretty sure. Okay, how many of you ladies would agree with my wife and say a card is not a gift? Put up your hand. Obviously, the women are in total solidarity. Thanks, guys, for leaving me hanging out to dry. Appreciate that. But you can understand, when you give somebody a gift, the card is on the top, so you can understand why I would think a card is a gift. It's part of the gift, but it was not a gift. And in that moment, I knew that that was a blind spot. And because I did not have anybody else in my life at the time who was further down the road or probably didn't even ask anyone because I was isolated in that decision, I didn't realize I had that blind spot. And as a result of that blind spot, I made a bad decision. And in that moment, I was experiencing a ton of regret. A ton of regret. Because you know what? If I had other guys in my life at the time and I told them, hey, you know what? Our first anniversary is rolling around, but my wife and I, we agreed, no gifts, no gifts. So that's what I'm gonna do. What do you think? Do you think that's a good thing to do? Anybody who was further down the road, even probably people who aren't married yet, who have better understanding than I do and more wisdom, they would have said, are you crazy? Are you trying to ruin your marriage? And so they probably would have said something like that, and I probably would have got her something and probably would have gotten her a gift. But the fact is that I was isolated. I didn't ask anybody. And so because I had that blind spot, I made a bad decision and I experienced regret. And for some of us here, most of us here, probably all of us here, we've all experienced that. And the regrets that we've experienced have been so much deeper, so much more significant than forgetting to give somebody a card. And these regrets that so many of us have experienced could have been avoided if we had other people in our lives to speak into our lives, to ask questions of and to have conversation with. And it's similar when it comes to our faith. Because if we approach faith in isolation and not in community, we can find ourselves at a place that we never ever wanted to be. But luckily for us, there's a place in the scriptures that talks about this very thing. And this place in the scriptures, it was written by this incredibly wise king named Solomon who reflected on life, love, and how to live without this regret. And this place in the scriptures, this book in the scriptures is called Ecclesiastes. And in Ecclesiastes, Solomon, he talks a lot about a lot of different things. And he covers things like politics and religion, wealth and friendship, as well as wisdom. And if you've ever read this book, he provides us with incredible advice on how to live life and make good decisions. And so what I know is because this book is so incredible, even if you're not a Jesus follower, even if you don't believe any of this Jesus stuff, I know that you could read this book and that it would be helpful for you. And in the section that we're gonna be looking at this morning, what Solomon does is he talks specifically about isolation and its danger in our lives. And so at the very beginning of the section we're gonna be looking at, this is what Solomon says. He says something very, very simple and something that many of us may know, in that he says, 2 are better than 1. He says 2 are better than 1. And probably most of us, if not all of us, we know this in our brains, and at least theoretically we agree with this. Because we've heard those phrases like, you know what, 2 heads are better than 1. We've heard that African proverb that says, if you wanna go fast, go alone, but if you wanna go far, go together. I'll repeat that one more time. If you wanna go fast, go alone, but if you wanna go far, and if you wanna experience progress, if you wanna achieve great things, go together. And so 2 are better than 1, that's the statement that Solomon makes, at least in our brains, at least in theory, we agree with it. But the thing is that for so many of us, the way that we live, the way that we choose to live says that we don't necessarily believe that. And I'm no different. Because when it comes to my life, you know what? I'd rather do things by myself. And the reason why I'd rather do things by myself is because I think it's faster, I think it's more efficient. And I also believe, and help me out with this saying, I also believe that if I want it done right, do it yourself, right? If you want it to be done right, do it yourself. Don't involve any other people. Keep them out of it. And that's what I believe. So that's why I believe it's just better to do things by myself. And maybe for some of you, you believe the same thing. If you were to have to choose between doing something yourself or choosing to do it with other people, you know what? You'd rather do it yourself if you can. And you say, it's because I'm an independent person, or I'm an introvert, or you know what? When other people just enter into the situation and they share their opinions and their thoughts, it just makes things more confusing, more complicated, and I don't need that in my life, and I don't want that in my life. And all of these things may be true, but at the end of the day, many of them are just simply excuses to mask an unhealthy isolation that we're all holding onto. And so Solomon's foundational point is that isolation, especially in the area of our decision making, isn't the best approach. And what he says is that there is a better way. There's a better way for us to live. And so he starts off by saying, two are better than one. And then he tells us the reason why two are better than one. Because he says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. And what he means when he talks about a good return are the benefits that come to us when we say no to living in isolation, when we reject that and we embrace being connected in community and we say yes to that, the benefits that come to us. And he talks about three benefits in the following three verses. And in laying out these benefits, what Solomon does is that he paints a picture for us of a journey. And so Solomon tells us the first benefit of being connected to others in community is that when we're connected, we're able to encourage each other. And he says this, if either of them falls down, because remember, he's giving us this picture of a journey. So when you're on a journey with someone and one of you falls down, what you're able to do is you can help the other person up. But pity the one who falls and has no one to help them up. And the thing is that for all of us here, we all know that life is hard because we've all experienced hardship, pain, difficulty, and sorrow in our lives. Every single one of us. And when we stumble and fall in life, and I'm not talking about if we stumble and fall, but when we stumble and fall in life, we need other people to come alongside of us and encourage us. Whether it's through their words or through their actions, to encourage us, and through that encouragement to help us back up and to help us keep going. And probably many of you have experienced that in your life. But the thing is that when we're by ourselves, when we have nobody around to help us, and when life knocks us down, and when we stumble and fall, it is really, really hard to get back up by yourself. And that's why Solomon says, pity the person who is alone, because that is so hard. But what Solomon also says is that when we're connected to others in community, we're not only able to encourage each other, we're also able to sustain each other. And this is what he says. Also, if two lie down, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And so what he was talking about was that back in Solomon's day, 3,000 years ago, cold weather was a problem. Now, no big deal, right? Our homes, our buildings are insulated. If we're cold, we just go to this thing called the thermostat on the wall, push a couple buttons, and miraculously heat comes into our homes. But 3,000 years ago, that wasn't the case. And it was a problem particularly at night. So one of the ways that people back then would keep warm was that if you had somebody else sleeping in your bed, you could huddle next to them and you could share body heat and you could sustain each other that way. And so what Solomon is saying is that being connected to others isn't just important, it's actually a necessity because we need other people to sustain us. And maybe for some of you, for many of you, again, you've experienced this. Maybe something difficult, painful, devastating has entered into your life. And you felt like, I don't know if I could keep going. And so you reached out to that friend of yours who you know and who knows you. And you spent some time with that person, just laughing, talking. Those people who just understand us and know when to say the right thing. Those people who know that when you just spend time with them, they speak or they breathe life into you. And you spend time with those people, and that difficulty in your life, they're able to sustain you and help you to keep going. many of us have experienced that. That's the idea of what Solomon is talking about here, that we are able to sustain each other, support each other during those difficult times. But Solomon tells us we're not only able to encourage each other, not only able to sustain each other, but he also says that when we are connected together in community, we're also able to strengthen each other. Because he says, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And when Solomon talks about being overpowered, what he's talking about is facing a difficult situation, an overwhelming situation that we just simply cannot deal with on our own. And again, many of us have dealt with these types of situations, faced these situations. It may have been bankruptcy. It could have been divorce. It could have been suddenly losing your job and you had no idea it was coming and you were totally blindsided. It may have been the death of someone you so deeply love. But so many of us have experienced this. But when these situations enter into our lives and we have other people around us, what those people are able to do is that they are able to strengthen us. And Solomon tells us the reason why we're able to strengthen each other and give each other strength is because he says at the end of that verse, a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Meaning, multiple people who are connected tightly together in relationship can't easily be overpowered. They cannot easily be overwhelmed. It's this idea that there are strength in numbers. And so when we come together and we're connected with one another in relationship, we're able to give each other strength. And this past Wednesday at midweek, I told the people who were there a little bit of my story. And part of my story includes the fact that when I was back in high school, I was bullied for 2.5 years. And those were the 2.5 of the most miserable years of my life. And I honestly can't even remember the number of times I thought about taking my own life. Because during that time, on so many days, I just didn't want to see tomorrow. I just didn't see the point of living until tomorrow because I had absolutely no hope. And so I thought about ending my life so many times. And during those 2.5 years, the night that I hated the most was that I hated Sunday nights because I knew on Sunday nights, the next 5 days, I would have to go to school and face these 3 guys who were making my life miserable. That's what was going to happen for the next 5 days. I hated Sunday nights. And if Sunday nights were the worst nights, Friday nights were the best nights for me. And the reason why Friday nights were the best wasn't just because school was over and I wouldn't have to see those 3 guys until Monday. But also what happened on Friday nights is that I would go to this small group with a bunch of other high school students at my church. But the thing was that my mom growing up, she's a single parent. And so she worked so much. And the place that we met, this small group met, was 45 minutes away from where I lived. And so she wasn't able to give me a ride. And so what my small group leader did was that when he found out that I needed a ride every week, he would come out of his way, he would pick me up and he would drive me to the house where we met, and then he would drive me back home. And this would add an hour and a half to his commute. But he did this every single week. And we had some of the most amazing conversations driving to that small group and coming back to my house. But not only was my small group leader amazing, those students who were in that small group were incredible to me. At a time when I so deeply needed people in my life, when I needed to be connected to other people. Because when I was at school, no exaggeration, I had no friends, 0 people. At recess, at lunch, because I didn't want to see these 3 guys who were making my life so difficult, I would just go hide away in this section of our school where nobody hung out. There were no lockers, there was nothing. And I would just go there and just wait out recess and eat my lunch there because I just didn't want to see these guys. So I had no friends at school. And at that time, I so desperately needed to be connected. And it was the people in this small group that said, hey, why don't you join us? Why don't you come and be a part of our community? And what they did was that they would invite me every single time that they would go out and do something. They would give me a call and say, hey, Andrew, we want you to come. And at a time where I had 0 self-esteem and I felt completely worthless and I felt like I had no value, these people said, you have value, you have worth, and that's why we want to spend time with you, so come and hang out with us. But they not only did this and included me in conversations, But every single Friday night, they would pray for me. And every single Friday night, the words that they spoke to me breathed life into my soul. And so these are the people who I was connected to. These are the people who did exactly what we're talking about today for me. They encouraged me, they sustained me, and they strengthened me at a time when I needed them the most. And they were so incredible to me, and I loved going to this group so much that during the week when things got really, really bad, I would just say to myself over and over and over again, you just gotta get to Friday. You just gotta get to Friday. You just gotta make it to Friday. Because I knew on Friday that I could go to this place and be a part of this community, a place where I was loved, accepted, where I could feel safe and just simply be myself. And so the question that I have for all of you today is, do you have these people in your life? Do you have these people when life gets hard, when difficulty enters into, and not only when life is hard, but every single day, who can encourage you, who can sustain you, and who can strengthen you? Because the reality is that all of us here, everyone needs someone, and there's a someone who needs you. And today what we also wanted you to hear is that we wanted you to hear the story of the McCullough family, and that they went through an incredibly difficult time, but it was through the help of people in this community that they were able to navigate through that situation. And so as you're watching and hearing their story, think about this question: do you have these people? Do I have these people in my life? And as we're watching this story, the ushers are going to come forward to receive the offering. So if this is your first time here, please do not feel any obligation to give. And I know many of you give online, but if you would like to give, this would be your opportunity to do so. So take a look at their story and enjoy.
So we met in college. I grew up in Canada. He grew up in Midland, Michigan. And we dated for a really short period of time, 6 months, and then got engaged.
Not recommended.
It was great, good experience. 6 months we dated, got engaged, got married 3 months later. So we did it fast. 6 months later, we found out we were having a baby. Super excited. And then about 20 weeks, when you get the regular ultrasound, we found out that she was going to be born with spina bifida. The doctors painted pictures for us that were just like, you know, the very worst case scenario. She's not going to walk. She might be able to talk. Wheelchair bound her whole life. Ill all the time. Lots of brain surgeries. So they painted a really bad picture for us.
For me, I was having a really hard time making sense of it. I didn't really know what to do or where to go or who to talk to. I had really no context for any of it. It was like survival. It was just figuring out, how do I get through exams? And then how do I step into something bigger than that? That period of time from when she was born, or maybe even a little bit before that, to maybe 3 or 4 years later, was far and away the most isolated I've ever felt.
My family is all in Canada. I'm the only one here, and they're 6 hours into Ontario. So they physically couldn't be here. I moved to a different country, so that part was really hard for me, to even just be newlyweds and have your family not be around. But then to have a child, and then have a child with special needs, and not have my mom, who is a special needs teacher, so far away, and, can't physically be there. It was lonely.
We had a couple of friends who were going to Kensington at the time, and they were rolling out a small group study. 2 friends in particular who were newly married kept asking us to join this group, and we had not been going to church. We did not have a community. We were not really interested in driving from Plymouth to Rochester Hills once a week. My buddy kept begging us, just join, just check it out. And so finally we did. And when we got there, it was a house full of people our age, and some
Nobody had kids.
Somebody we knew, some we knew, some we didn't know. And I can remember in the first couple of sessions being there for 2 hours and then driving an hour home, and just being in the car and sort of looking over and being like, that was good.
Mm-hmm. We were like, that was super worth an hour drive. People are listening to us, and we get to listen to other people. And we're not just focused on raising our family. It was I don't know, I felt like we felt the Lord super close, even though we were clinging to him in the situation with Claire, but it was a different aspect and a different characteristic of the Lord that was brought in with the community.
There's a certain level of freshness when you're in a desert sort of scenario, so to speak, and then you step into something where it's a giant glass of water, and it's like, wow, that tastes really good, and I haven't had that drink in a long time, and you start realizing how necessary it is.
We just kept coming, and we met another couple in that group that they invited us to come and live with them because we were throwing around the idea of moving up this direction, him quitting his job and moving up this direction to be with this community. And they said, hey, we're newlyweds. We just bought this house and we have a full basement. You guys come live with us. And we'd known this couple 6 months, and we were like, okay, let's do it. We have a kid, you mind? And they were like, no, come. We went from no community to living with community, and it was awesome. And they just swooped Claire up like she was their own and helped us in those early years.
Come on.
They got to see her take her first steps, and she walked from me to Natalie across a rug. Sorry.
It changed everything. I mean, it changed not just for us, but it changed our whole community outlook. It changed the way that we raise our kids.
Like who, your wife? I don't know.
Claire is almost 16. She'll be 16 this summer. And she is friends with everyone. Being a part of a community and with her now, it's so amazing to see other people pour into your children and encourage their gifts and encourage their just their positive attributes that they've been given from the Lord. To have a community come around you and encourage your kids without you doing anything, it's really amazing. Just the quantity of time that we had together and the quality of time, it's something that I never knew I was missing. And then when I had it really, I would never turn away from a community again. It just is so, it's the way we were made to live.
When you step into a relationship that very much is like a covenant outside of your marriage and with other people, I cannot express how important it is. I can't even articulate all the benefits that you would get from that. But for me and for us as a family, I mean, it quite literally changed the history of our family. It changed the legacy that we're laying for our kids. It totally changed everything. It's that important. People think I'm exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating. It changed the legacy of our family.
It's a powerful story of community. And it was so incredible when they said that their community changed the trajectory of their lives. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking back to my high school days and how that small group that I was a part of changed the trajectory of my life, and in many ways, they saved my life. And one of the things that Holly McCullough said in that video, what she said really struck me, just one line that she mentioned towards the end. And she said, community, it's the way we were made to live. It's the way we were made to live. And I've been thinking about that. And the reason why, when it comes to community, when it comes to relationship, that there is a desire in every single one of us not to be alone, but to be connected to other people is because we have been made in the image of God. We've been made in his image. And the thing with God is, from all of eternity, what he has been always in is community. He's always been in community with his son Jesus as well as with the Holy Spirit, all the time. And because we've been made in his image, we've been designed for community as well. So that desire that you have to be connected to other people isn't just merely a desire, but rather it's a necessity. And so the question that I'm going to go back to is a question that I asked before the video, is do you have these people in your life? Do you have these people who are able to encourage you, who are able to sustain you, who are able to strengthen you? And if your answer to that question is no, we would love for you today, before you leave this building, to take that step and to take a step into community. And one of the ways that you can do it right here at Kensington is to join a group. And to join a group, all you have to do is you can go to the website, you can do it on the app, or if you want to talk to a person, an actual person, you can go out into the lobby and you can have conversations, you can ask them questions, you can say, hey, this is where I am. What group can I be a part of? Because the thing is the truth is that everyone needs someone. We all need other people in our lives to be in relationship with. But at the same time, we don't just need other people. We can be that someone for somebody else as well. We can be that community to other people. And so maybe for some of you, when I ask that question, do you have those people in your life? Your answer is yes, of course I do. I have lots of those people in my life. But that you wouldn't just simply stop there, but you would continue to invite people into your life, and you would continue to be that community for other people. When you meet somebody in the lobby who's simply by themselves and you realize, wow, you don't have somebody else, that you would invite them into your life, maybe grab a cup of coffee, maybe have dinner with them, maybe invite them into your group, and that you would be that community for other people. Because we all need community, we all do, but we also need to be that community for others. And that's the extraordinary truth. Let's bow our heads and pray. God, thank you, Lord, that you designed us to be like this. You designed us for community, not to be alone, but to be connected, to be in relationship with other people, Lord. And so I pray for the people here today whose answer to that question, do you have those people in your life? Their answer is no, that they would take the courageous step this morning before they leave this building to have that conversation, to look up on their phone the groups that are available, and to sign up for something, God, and to jump in that way. But at the same time, God, I pray for those people who do have those people in their lives, that they wouldn't stop there and be satisfied there, but that they would continue to be that community for others and constantly be inviting people into their lives and into the community that they have. And I thank you, God, that you have designed us for community in this way. And we thank you for the beauty that we are able to see when that happens. And we pray all these things in your son's name. Amen.
As I sat and listened to Andrew's message on community, I'm continually reminded of what Paul says in 1 Corinthians when he compares us to the body and how we each play a role in this thing called community. And I believe that when we engage in community is when that body comes alive. And it comes alive when we decide to say yes to circles instead of these roles that we tend to thrive in. And I just think that it's something that takes place that is just amazing, and because it's contagious, and then it goes out and it affects the world around us when we engage in community. So over these next few minutes, we're gonna sing a song, and there's gonna be a video that plays on the screen that just shows a great example of what it looks like when we as a church engage in community and how our mission and how we impact the world can be so powerful. Amen. Have you ever seen the wonder in the glimmer of first sight? As the eyes begin to open and the blindness meets the light. If you have souls, say, I see the world in light. I see the world in wonder. I see the world in life, bursting in living color. I see the world your way, and I'm walking in the light. Have you ever seen the wonder in the air of second life? Have you come out of the waters with the old one left behind? If you have souls, say, I see the world in light. I see the world in wonder. I see the world in light, bursting in living color. I see the world your way, and I'm walking in the light. I see the world in grace. I see the world in gospel. I see the world your way, and I'm walking in the light. I'm walking in the wonder. You're the wonder in the wild. To the wilderness to wander. Oh, I'll say, I see the world in love. I see the world in freedom. I see the Jesus way. And you're the wonder in the wild. I see the world your way, and I'm not afraid to follow. I see the world your way, and I'm not ashamed to say so. I see the Jesus way, and I'm walking in the light. I see the world in light. I see the world in wonder. I see the world in life, bursting in living color. I see the world your way, and I'm walking in the light. Oh, I'll say, I see the world in grace. I see the world in gospel. I see the world your way, and I'm walking in the light. I'm walking in the wonder. You're the wonder in the wild. To the wilderness to wander. Oh, I'll say, I see the world in rain. I see the world in freedom. I see the Jesus way. You're the wonder in the wild.
I think that last image in that little film says it all. It's this circular dance that's happening, and with arms and hands connected. In fact, I always think about perichoresis, the circular divine dance of God, Father, Son, and Spirit. That's what perichoresis means, this beautiful dance. One person says that the dance of God it's a circular dance, but it's not a closed circle. It's a circle that you can be invited into. And it's like, come on, let's dance. Let's go. That's our dream this year. And every year and every day for this community, let's go, enter into the dance. The divine dance of God. Connect with people and let's go. It's stunning what Steve, you and I talked yesterday, and you're like, it's unbelievable, this little circle of people. And now you look and how God has just multiplied that and connected. That's our dream. So as you leave and you go into the lobby, there's going to be tables. Connect. Don't leave without connecting. You're not going to, we're going to have beautiful moments in these rows. But real long life change and spiritual growth in Christ is going to happen in small circles. Don't let that pass by. Make a commitment this year. So go out there and shake someone's hand. Also, Alpha is a great way. If you're there and you're like, I have big questions. Good, you should have big questions. I have big questions. And so be part of that as well and sign up. But thank you for being here. This Wednesday night, Strand Theater in Pontiac, great worship night. Next, this coming new series, Leave a Mark. Be back for that next weekend. You need prayer down front. Hey, by the way, as you're walking out, hold on 1 second. Hold on, stop. Can we give Andrew Kim a big hand, please? Thank you for being with us. You're awesome. You're awesome. Good. Hey, have a great weekend. We'll meet you out in the lobby. Shake hands.